What the fuck? That's weird. Okay. How do we want to intro this? Are we just saying welcome to the best friend files? Or are we saying what are we saying? I'm
But
gonna
I feel like
start.
we can't introduce something if we haven't made it yet. You know what I mean?
That is a really profound point. Okay.
I just want to pull it up. I got to pull it up on my computer real quick.
Okay. I have like everything typed out. And basically, I'm gonna go through like who he is and how we got to the point of this happening.
Okay.
Okay. Are you ready?
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay.
So, my file for our best friends file podcast today is the court transcripts, which have been made public as of 2 months ago, July 1st, from the Jeffrey Epstein trial in 2006. So, sources for this story are a February 2014 article from Florida Gov website, a July 2024 article from Palm Beach Coast website, the 2020 Netflix documentary Jeffrey Epstein, Filthy Rich, and that's based on a 2016 book, which has the longest title. Quote, a powerful billionaire, the sex scandal that undid him, and all the justice that money can buy. The shocking true story of Jeffrey Epstein. And a 2020 documentary, Who Killed Jeffrey Epstein, on IDTV. Okay, so Jeffrey Epstein's 2006 court transcript was released July 1st of this year, 2024, in large part because Governor DeSantis of Florida championed legislation saying, quote, the public deserves to know who participated in Jeffrey Epstein's sex trafficking. Nobody should be protected from facing justice due to their wealth or status, and those who harm children should be exposed and punished to the fullest extent of the law, which we love it. So rather than charge him directly, the state attorney chose to present evidence to a grand jury. And when you do that, it basically makes sure that the names of everyone involved and the details of the accusations are kept sealed. So this DeSantis like law, or I don't know what you call it, his legislation is called HB 117, and it allows the disclosure of grand jury testimony if the subject of the grand jury is dead, the investigation was about sexual activity with a minor, the testimony was previously disclosed by a court order, and the state attorney is notified. A little history on our boy. Jeffrey's born and raised in New York, which is unfortunate for us. He graduates high school 2 years early and earns extra money tutoring, so he's smart. His professional life begins with teaching physics and math at the Dalton School in 1974 with no degree, which you're supposed to have. He, of course, shows inappropriate behavior towards underage female students and shows up to a party where young people are drinking. He's later dismissed from Dalton in 1976, so 2 years later, for, quote, poor performance. He's then offered a job at Bear Stearns because he literally propositioned someone at a, what am I saying? At a parent teacher conference. So at Bear Stearns, he moves up quickly. He becomes a limited partner after 4 years. In 1981, he's asked to leave for being guilty of a Reg D violation, which is like basically protecting customers from fraudulent or otherwise like predatory practices and like following the federal guidelines. So he is already showing this pattern that he really doesn't feel like he needs to play by the rules or the laws. He just can get the job, he can get the promotion, doesn't matter. In that same year, he starts his own consulting firm. So there's like no shame here. He's just moving right along. In 1987, he works at the Towers Financial Corporation, which later imploded when it's exposed that it's a Ponzi scheme one of the largest in American history, losing over $450 million of investor money, which equals about $950 million today. He leaves the company 8 years later, and he is never charged for involvement. Although, like, there's this guy, Hoffenberg, who works with him on this Ponzi scheme and says he was intimately involved, but like, I'm pretty sure this Hoffman guy just goes down for it. So in 88, he founds another financial management firm, J. Epstein and Company, and he tells everyone that he manages more than $1 billion with a B in US net worth. And this is when he's like getting up to the ranks of like the Donald Trumps, the Bill Clintons. He's basically just this mysterious, eligible, handsome bachelor who's got all this money and is at every party and is just always bragging about this $1 billion he has. But the only publicly known billionaire client of his is Les Wexner, who owns The Limited, which then turns into Victoria's Secret and other retail companies. So he meets Les Wexner through mutual acquaintances. A year later, 1 year later, he becomes this guy's financial advisor. And within that year, he sorts out his finances. I don't know what that means, but in 91, 3 years later, Les Wexner grants Jeffrey Epstein full power of attorney over all of his finances. So Jeffrey is just wildly trading this dude's money. And it's at this time he gets a private jet, he gets a private island, he gets properties in Paris, in New York, like all the things. He frequently talks to limited brands and executives. He attends Victoria's Secret fashion shows and, of course, hosts models, huge quotations there, at his New York City home and helps aspiring models to get work. So in 96, a year after he like really starts taking over Les Wexner's life, this girl named Maria Farmer is offered help in her painting career. And there's basically like a student art show, and she sells her artwork that's there. And then after she sells it, the dean of the academy of the art program tells her the people who purchased her art are no longer going to get it. All the pieces are going to this lovely couple who are prominent board members, and she's going to give it to them at a discount. And these people are Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. I don't know why I have to say her name like that. So the way in her interview that she describes like giving it to Jeffrey at a discount, because she's like, I'm a college student. Like, she is broke, she is hungry, she is living off of Easy Mac like we all did. And he's like, this discount is going to just buy your future and your career. So he's telling her, like, of course, it's like she's so lucky to get paid dog shit for her art that she just got paid full price for by people who actually probably aren't going to use it as softcore porn. So a few months later, he gives her a front desk job at his house. She mentions in her interview that she notices all these girls coming in, like young girls. She asks about it, and Ghislaine's like, "Oh, they're Victoria's Secret models." And she's like, "I don't like know anything about modeling. I paint." So I don't know if they're, older than they look, if they're recruited at a younger age. Like, she basically is just like, okay, whatever. And that's also like kind of the first time you hear about Jeffrey like being so enthusiastic about sharing that he has cameras everywhere. And she just describes that like all over his house there are cameras, like in dressing rooms, in bathrooms, in hallways, in the kitchen, in bedrooms, like everywhere. And he wanted her to know that like he could always see her. So of course, front desk work has nothing to do with art. She gets an offer to paint on like a movie set, and she's like, "Okay, I'm going to leave." And Jeffrey's like, "No, no, no, no. Go paint at my 29,000 square foot house." She goes because she's like, this is an awesome opportunity. No one's staying there. Of course, him and Ghislaine randomly come to visit, and he assaults her with Ghislaine. She mentions that like Ghislaine tells her Jeffrey wants a massage, which this is like his MO. It's like a massage turned dirty every time. She goes in there and basically Ghislaine's like showing her how to massage his feet, and he's like doing the creep thing of making exaggerated like moaning sounds. And she's like in her early 20s. This man's in his late 50s at this point. So she's like, okay. And then he's like pats the bed for her to like sit next to him. So she does. And then she said it was so bizarre because it was like he sticks his hand out and just starts like twisting and rubbing her breast, but like not in a way that like someone would be naturally getting into it, like mechanically twisting it, and she imitates it like as if he's trying to get into a locked doorknob. Ghislaine immediately also grabs her other breast and is just copying what Jeffrey's doing. She's like crying. And as she's got tears coming down her face, Ghislaine is like creepily wiping the tears off her face and being like, it's okay. It's okay, honey. And like shushing her. She runs down the hall, locks her door. And then the next day, Jeffrey calls her like nothing has happened and says, last night was fun. And she's like, I quit. And he's like, oh, whatever. You're never going to, your whole art career is like over. Ba, 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 ba. So at some point, she introduces him to her 16-year-old sister, Annie. So Annie Farmer, her younger sister, is told by Jeffrey and Ghislaine that like they're going to have this college prep course thing, and like her parents should let them have her come to this house, and it's going to be like a whole thing. So like they say yes. Annie gets there. She's expecting like, you know, whatever. She's the only person there. And of course, she is assaulted. So once the older sister finds out about this, the two of them contact the NYPD, and the NYPD's like, you have to call the FBI. So they do, and it goes nowhere. She then starts facing threats and abandons her life and stops painting entirely. In 2003, this journalist named Vicky Ward is told to write a Vanity Fair article about this mystery bachelor who's quickly in the elite and da da da. So the editor at the time is named Graydon Carter, and while she's researching the story in 2002, she's like 6 or 7 months pregnant. She interviews the Farmer sisters, and Jeffrey threatens her directly when she calls to get his opinion, saying, quote, I have reports here about you, your husband. I have everything under the sun that was sent to me by people who want to be helpful. He asks her where she's giving birth, and then he goes, it doesn't matter. He tells her it doesn't matter because he knows every doctor in Florida, and he will find her and is going to get a nurse to put a curse on her unborn baby. So there's dispute about who stopped the article, but both the editor and the writer agree that Jeffrey said he was, quote, sensitive about the girls. So Palm Beach begins in 2005 because March 15 of that year, the stepmother of a 14-year-old girl calls the police and they play the tape. And it just sounds like such a mom. Like she calls and she's like, yeah, hi, my daughter got in a fight at school with some girl over $300. And I'm like, where did you get this money? And she said that they go to this old guy's house and give him a massage. And so the girl, she's like presses her daughter.
But now this is the manuscript that was just released.
Yes. So this is like the start of that. So she says she gave Epstein a massage. He came into the room in a towel, sternly told her to take her clothes off. She strips to her bra and thong and gives him a massage as he masturbates. Afterwards, he gives her $300, and the following day she gets into a fight with another girl who calls her a prostitute. The attorney for the victims, so this guy is so amazing. He pulls out this like red poster board, and it looks kind of like a crime board with pictures. And he says, "This we made in our first 30 days." And he's like, "I've never had to map out a pyramid scheme for child molestation, but that is what this is." And within 30 days, there are so many names and recruiters, like of girls he's hired, that he's like, "Oh, I won't molest you if you recruit your friends. I'll give you $200 for every girl you bring." And these are all high school children from like not the neighborhood that Jeffrey lives in, but like West Palm Beach, which is a more economically like challenged area. So these kids come a lot from broken homes. There's a drug use, there's single parent homes, they're working 3, 4 jobs. So these kids are just like going crazy recruiting. And he's like, after 30 days, we realized it's going to go off the poster board, but I kept it. And there must be like 80 people on this board of like, this person recruits these 10, out of this 10, 4 people are recruiters. They recruit these, like, it's crazy. So I thought that was like poignant. October 20th, a search warrant's issued and multiple computers are missing from his house. Like the cords are clearly have been like ripped out or like were just attached. There's like spaces where things used to be. And then in 2006, the FBI revisits the Farmer sisters as part of the investigation. December 19th, defense lawyers representing Jeffrey come to Palm Beach County to legally battle Palm Beach County State Attorney Barry Krishner. Just a heads up, the team of his defense attorneys include Harvard Law professor Alan Dershowitz, who defended O.J. Simpson, Jack Goldberger, who is a local powerhouse, Roy Black, also a local powerhouse, Gerard Lefcourt, and Kenneth Starr. So like massive, humongous names. So in 2022-2023, the first grand jury is scheduled and 3 victims are scheduled to testify. The former Palm Beach police chief is interviewed a lot in the Netflix documentary. His name's Michael Reiter, and he says prosecutors told him they wouldn't press charges for any victims 16 or older unless it was under, quote, extraordinary circumstances, meaning rape, which he's like, that's crazy. Like, he's never heard of this, but he's like, okay. Then they cancel the grand jury to review MySpace pages provided by the defense of some victims mentioning sex, drinking, and drugs. So basically, the defense is like, these girls' testimony sucks because they come from broken homes, which, like, you mean they're a perfect victim? Okay, great. So April 1st, victims tell detectives that they and their families are being followed. Jeffrey Epstein hires private investigators to follow around the people who are about to testify against him. This includes being run off the road, calls saying, "You think you're safe, you're not. I know where you," the one chick that he like abuses for years tells her, or no, Ghislaine says, "I know you go running on like the whatever highway, and you shouldn't run there anymore because there are a lot of ways for someone to die running there." And then she says, "Those who help him will be compensated, and those who hurt him will be dealt with." They are reported up to the state attorney's office because that's witness tampering, which is a crime. And again, nothing is done. April 17th, another grand jury is scheduled for April 18th to 19th. So they should be done trying to burn these chicks with MySpace. And it's canceled again. Prosecutors and Epstein's lawyers try to negotiate a guilty plea to aggravated assault with no jail time. Epstein rejects it. Not good enough. May 1st, the chief of police of Palm Beach questions the, quote, highly unusual way that the state attorney, Krishner, the Palm Beach County State Attorney, is handling the case. Child sex crimes prosecutor Dalian Weiss, known to be a hard nose on child sex crimes, bows out after Epstein hires her husband's law firm. May 23rd, the FBI and federal prosecutors come into play after Reiter, the chief of Palm Beach Police, and Detective Riccari are like, you need to get involved because like this isn't being handled correctly. July 23rd, Epstein spends one night in Palm Beach County Jail, and he's released the next day on $3,000 bond, which is literally what he has in his shoe that accidentally fell out of his pocket. So it's 2007 now. Negotiations begin in secret. And in September 24th of 2007, what is called the Deal of the Century is signed by Epstein. He pleads guilty to 2 felony prostitution-related charges under this Krishner guy, which requires him to register as a sex offender. It also protects 4 named co-conspirators as well as any potential co-conspirators. So the chief of police from Palm Beach is like, when have you ever heard of a deal that protects people that haven't even been named yet? Like, number one, a deal shouldn't cover somebody else. The fact that it does is outrageous. And then going beyond to say, oh, and anyone else that at any point ever could potentially be linked to me, you also can't go after them. So no one's heard of this. Like, everyone's just like, this is fucking crazy. So Alexander Acosta is the U.S. attorney in Miami, and he brokered the deal. He'd been ordered by higher government officials who told him Epstein was an individual of importance to the government. So the importance part. According to the Miami Herald, Epstein provided unspecified information to the Florida federal prosecutors and was supposedly an unnamed key witness for the New York federal prosecutors in their unsuccessful 2008 criminal case against 2 managers of the failed Bear Stearns hedge fund. So he snitched on his own coworkers. In 2015, the Israeli newspaper Haaretz said Epstein invested in a startup connected with Israel's defense industry. He also offered the CEO of this company lodging in Manhattan and has experience with Israel's research and military sector. In April of 2008, he meets with a number of research scientists in Israel and visits different Israel military bases. So that is all part of the theory of why he would be cut this deal and his quote importance. Like, whatever. 2008, he pleads guilty, goes to jail. It's now January 10th. The victims receive a letter from the FBI asking them to be patient while they conduct an investigation. It doesn't say that the federal investigation is over because he already signed a deal in September. So October, November, December, January. So 4 months after he already gets out of this deal or gets out of this trial with this shit deal, the FBI tells all of the victims, like, we're working on it. So June 30th, he pleads guilty to the grand jury charge of solicitation for prostitution, Krishner's charge of solicitation of a minor for prostitution. Instead of decades in federal prison, he's given 18 months in the private wing of the Palm Beach County Jail reserved for snitches and others needing protection from other inmates. I just put parentheses rich. July 22nd of 2009, he's released for a year on house arrest, but is also allowed to travel frequently to his island on the Virgin Islands, as long as he's back in 24 hours. There are several documentations of house arrest violation in the state attorney's file, but again, no action is taken. July 6, 2019, 10 years later, New York prosecutors charge him with sex trafficking and arrest him in Teterboro Airport in New Jersey as he arrives from Paris. August 10th, so this July 6, 2019 is basically like they are now prosecuting him in New York because he already got off the charges from Palm Beach County. So they're coming after him again. And then about a month later, August 10th, he's found dead in his jail cell with 45 different sets of sheets, and it's ruled a suicide. July 2nd, 2020, Ghislaine Maxwell's arrested for trafficking minors and participating in the abuse in some instances dating back to the mid-90s. December 30th of 2021, after a month in trial, she's found guilty. June 28th, 2022, she begins her 20-year federal sentence in a low-security prison in Tallahassee. Her release date's 2037. She's teaching etiquette classes that focus on, quote, respect, consideration, and honesty. February 17th.
Wait. She's teaching classes?
She is teaching classes in prison.
What? On etiquette?
And respect and consideration and honesty.
When she's a groomer, basically.
Do you want to take her class? Is that what you're saying?
I can't believe that they would. That's just wild.
I know.
How, her whole role in this is her influencing young girls.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to literally put her in a leadership, influential role, specifically about conduct?
Yep.
Personal conduct? Personal physical conduct?
Personal,
what?
all the way to your genitals. Yes. She is going to respect and consider the honesty that she does not have. So she's doing great. I'm sure she'll be released early.
Wow.
And so because of the fact that the FBI lied to the victims, there's like a bill, and it is to protect the victims so that they are involved and aware of any deal that's on the table for the defendant. And because the FBI literally lied in writing to multiple victims, they released the court documents. Everything was like unsealed, and so I think we're all outraged at the idea that someone who's been charged with the things that we've heard through the news media, like outlets, that's already egregious enough, but like how much more outraged would people be if they actually heard it? Which, I mean, some of these girls are 12. It is just insane. Like, it's insane. And they're in court, children in court, recounting the worst moments of their life that they have probably not healed from and may never heal from. And it just gets buried. And it's like,
not here, not with the best friend files. We're not letting it get buried.
Not today, bitch. Read it, and we're gonna tell you about it, and it's gonna be probably a real fucking bummer. But you know what? I think that it's probably way more important for the victims to get 2 documentaries and fucking random articles everywhere versus this guy who's just a career criminal and sexual offender of children. Like,
well, and to be honest, I mean, there's so many questions surrounding his death, disappearance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that's a whole nother thing, but I think you did a really good job at summing up everything leading up to this point, and especially the background on him. And I honestly did not know that he was being taken out of whatever prison he was in and allowed to go to his island.
Yep.
While he was still, while he was in custody. That's just insane.
Yeah, he was serving an 18-month sentence, and they were like, okay, but you got a pinky swear. When we let you go to the Virgin Islands for 23 and a half hours, you're not going to rape any kids. And he was like, okay.
I promise, Scout's honor.
And then he went and raped multiple people. Yeah.
I just think that, that's a good.
Yeah, that's the original, it's the hammer's dropping on him, and his attorneys, the fucking dream team, was just like, no. These girls have shady MySpace accounts, and so who cares about them being sodomized? And it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, 2006 is when everybody got together to have their day against this man.
And it's interesting because the whole reason that these were released, which I'm sure we'll talk about in that, and I think you covered it a little bit, was.
Wait, hang on.
So in 2019, the Palm Beach Post commenced its action seeking a declaration authorizing the release of the testimony. Yeah, the fact that it was hidden this entire time, and that they had to go multiple times to get this released is absolutely, so they 2019, 2021, 2023, insane to have this information that should have been plastered everywhere.
everywhere. Why is there not a Netflix documentary of these women who are so brave and so harrowing? Like, as a 12-year-old, I can't imagine reading a book report in front of my school, let alone what they had to talk about in detail in front of Jeffrey and attorneys and their parents, all this shit. And then what? I can't do math. 2024. So 12 years go by. And so now you were 12 at the time, and now you're 24. And nothing has ever fucking come of what you said. And it actually was just released to the internet, which no one has even been notified of.
So next week, we're going to pick apart this circuit court document, right? Yeah, clerk of the circuit court.
County,
Palm Beach County.
2006, Jeffrey Epstein transcripts from the court. And it is, I mean, we've both browsed through it. It's exactly what you think it will be. It is girls being ripped apart by the defense as they're saying things like, then he took out a dildo and used it on me. And they're like, oh, are you saying you like dildos? Did you buy it? Did you this? And it's like a 13-year-old being like, I didn't know what a dildo was. It's
boom.
Roasted.
I think so too. Is it really, it's interesting, and I think we'll get into this in the next one, but how there really is, you know, even the climate was different back then, like 2006.
Yeah.
As far as like women, young girls, like there were, because I don't know, I don't think now, because of the way like media is covered and everything, I don't think that they would get away with speaking to victims like they do here, to be honest.
I hope not.
And I think that speaks to, though, like just how it just kind of sets up for me like the era in which this all occurred, because I feel like that's what a lot of people grapple with these types of things, is like, how could anyone let this happen? And it's like, when you're retrospectively looking back, even though, you know, we grew up in that same time frame, it's like you'd like to think that we were further along than we really were. But now, like we had said, even looking back. So I just think it kind of like frames it also, is like, this is that era, is like, look how they're talking to these victims, like dog shit, basically.
Yeah.
This is how it happened. Like, you know what I mean? Because this is what you think of this is basically what you think of women, young girls, but then also, especially if they come from a less influential background.
You know why? Because it's so much easier to believe that a troubled young girl genuinely wants to have sexual intercourse with an elderly man in power, because the inverse is just too hard to swallow. That a man with unlimited power would choose to acquire children to molest and rape. And like, I just don't think we're ready for that. And it's like, when are we gonna be? Like, what what do we do with these 170 pages? Like, we're really just gonna pretend it's trash? Like, these girls have just, I cannot even fathom the anger and the rage. And side note, 2 days before Epstein dies, he places his entire trust of $577 million in the Virgin Islands estate he owns, which ties up that money so that even civil suits can't be paid out if like his estate is sued. It like ties up the money for like another 9 years. So like that, those funds aren't even available, but they will be.
Wow.
Yep. So yeah, do you want to do like a closing, or just say like, hey, that's it, okay, bye?
Well, I think we kind of did a little outro there, but like, yeah, we could like officially end it.
I don't know, I guess I just did kind of end it by saying bye.
Yeah. There you go. Bye.
Just play that. We'll just use that one.
Well, no, because we have to do like a tune-in next week. So next week we're gonna start the official. You know what I mean, like that.
Yeah.
Like, so
next
like,
week we are reading official receipts.
Yes, and we're gonna try to break everything down as digestible as possible, just so that everybody understands. And I think that's a big part of this too, is like, they think they can just throw legal jargon at us, and we're not gonna shy away.
No,
you're good.
Say it again.
No. I was just saying, so tune in next week as we dive in to the Epstein files. No, what do you want to call it? You say something like that.
To the receipts. The Epstein receipts.
And next week, make sure you tune in next week as we start itemizing the Epstein receipts.
Heads up and spoiler alert, we're in debt. Okay.
A tip was not left to ensure proper satisfaction.
Yes. A heads up, the sheet is not balanced and we are not financially successful. I am not coming up with good puns right now. But yeah.
It's okay. No, I think we have it. I think we have what we need.
We have it. It's good. Great.